Daniel Sports Central, we go for a college football game preview and prediction on the 2023 Military Bowl matchup between the Virginia Tech Hokies and the Tulane Green Wave. Two teams that have had good seasons getting to this point. You got Virginia Tech 6-6 on the season. This is a team that's definitely been inconsistent this year, but this is also a team that's shown to have a high ceiling. They've had some really impressive performances down the stretch as they take on Tulane, a team that went 11-2. And the Green Wave, this is a team the past couple of seasons that has emerged as one of the best teams in the group of five. Another really successful season for Tulane, getting up to 11 wins. But with that, we'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with your team trends. Virginia Tech beat Virginia 55-17. Dominant win for the Hokies there. This is a team that's had a couple of those big blowouts in the last month of action. They also beat up Boston College and Syracuse, two teams that are in bowl games this season. As for Tulane, lost to SMU for the American Athletic Championship 14-26, so obviously a disappointing loss there. But I mean, for Tulane to be where they were just a couple of years ago back in 2021, for them to have turned it around, they got to a New Year's Six bowl game last year, beat USC. This ain't quite a New Year's Six bowl game, but despite that, this is still a really impressive season for Tulane, getting back to 11 wins this season, especially considering some of the talent that this team lost after last season. Games be on Wednesday the 27th. In Annapolis. Kickoff is 2 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going Virginia Tech by 10.5 here, which you look at the records. You see Virginia Tech, who's 6-6. You see Tulane, who's 11-2. You'd expect Tulane to be the favorite in this matchup by a decent amount, but turns out going to be further from the truth. The Hokies are a pretty heavy favorite here, which when you consider, though, Tulane's also a team that has lost a lot of players, a few to the NFL draft, a few to the transfer portal, and so for Tulane, I mean, they don't have Michael Pratt, most notably, who has been such a significant player for this offense. He's been great the past couple of years for this team. So, I mean, obviously not having him is going to be tough, but this is also a team that got to 11 wins. And it takes more than just a quarterback to get to 11 wins. You have to be a complete team on both sides. And Tulane's obviously without more than just Michael Pratt, but this is still a talented team beyond the players that they have lost. But over-under is 44.5. FPI is going VTech as well, 55%. You look at the bowl history, Virginia Tech is 13-21 overall. Last time this team was in a bowl game was 2021, where they took on Maryland in the Pinstripe Bowl. Lost that game 54-10. So obviously looking for a better result in this one. Last time VTech won a bowl game was in 2016 in the Belk Bowl against Arkansas. But as for Tulane, 7-8 overall. They obviously beat USC in the Cotton Bowl last season. What a win that was. You consider the story of Tulane going from being just an awful team in 2021 to turning things around, winning a New Year's Six bowl game last year and getting back to 11 wins this season. Yeah, pretty incredible what Tulane has done. Your stat comparison, Virginia Tech 55th in points per game, 51st in points allowed. This is overall a pretty balanced team on both sides. You got Kyron Drones, who's really come around as a quarterback. He can run the ball. He's ran for 640 yards this season, 4 touchdowns, and he's not a terrible passer as well. It's really about not having turnovers. But this is a strong backfield here in the Hokies, and they're also really good against the pass. This is the 8th ranked pass defense in the country. But as for Tulane, this is a team that defensively has especially been strong. They're especially good against the run, which is exactly what they have to be against a Virginia Tech team that really puts an emphasis on the backfield and on the run. But obviously for Tulane as well, not going to be as effective in passing the ball, I would imagine. Obviously, Michael Pratt not being in there is going to have an impact. It seems like Kai Horton is going to be the starter at quarterback, but it's interesting because he's a guy that's in the transfer portal. He's actually headed out of Tulane after this season, so not having him around, but he's in the transfer portal, but he's still playing this game. So we'll see how he does considering everything. Obviously, for Michael Pratt being out is significant enough, but overall for Tulane, 10th in rush defense. That's the main strength of this team. Your recent matchups, VTech beat Virginia 55-17. They lost NC State by a touchdown. Beat Boston College 48-22. Lost to Louisville 3-34 and beat Syracuse 38-10. So you look at the past 5 games for Virginia Tech, it's gone a really impressive performance, and they followed that up with a really bad performance. I mean, that NC State game wasn't a terrible loss. I mean, he allowed 35 points in that game to them, but at least it was somewhat close. The Louisville game just wasn't even close. But point being, you look at the last 6 games, especially for this team, they've had some really dominant wins. I mean, every win that they have had this season has been fairly dominant. You look at all 6 wins, they never really had a close win this season. They had a couple of close losses. They lost to Purdue by a touchdown, Marshall by a touchdown, NC State by a touchdown. So you got a couple of close losses there. But overall, when this team clicks on both sides of the ball, they have a really solid game. This team can be dominant for sure. That's something to keep an eye on. But as for Tulane, lost to SMU 14-26. A lot of closer games for Tulane this season. That's, I think, a big reason why this team wasn't as big of a New Year's Six contender heading into the SMU game. Obviously, they took a loss back in week 2 to Ole Miss, 37-20. But otherwise, this team wasn't very dominant. They, especially in the last 6 games or so, the second half of the season, they wouldn't score much, but their defense would find a way to be dominant. We saw that against East Carolina, 13-10, beat Tulsa 24-22, beat FAU 24-8, beat UTSA 29-16. So, and that just didn't work out as well against a strong defensive team in SMU, only being able to score 14 on them. So for Tulane, not exactly the most dominant team this season, but they've found a way in a lot of games. That's how this team got to 11-2. Your key points: VTech 6-6. Despite being a 6-6 team, this is a strong team in the Hokies. I feel like they've got the talent and the potential to be a 7 or 8 win team this season. They just obviously have taken a couple of really tough losses, but you look at Kyron Drones, you look at the running backs, that's really where this offense shines. And once offense gets going, that's kind of the bottom line for VTech, is if you let this team find a rhythm and get going, watch out, because they can be dominant and they find ways to blow out opponents. I mean, once again, you look at all 6 wins for the Hokies this season, all 6 of them came by more than 2 possessions. So, I mean, that's how Virginia Tech finds ways to win games. And as for Tulane, they are without Michael Pratt, also Chris Brazell. That's something to keep in mind, as they are without their top receiver as well. They do have Hughes in there, who's a strong running back, nearly 1,300 yards this season and 7 touchdowns. I would expect him to get a lot of action in this game, especially against a strong VTech pass defense. VTech's rush defense is okay. It's not quite on the same level as their pass defense, but that's something to keep in mind. Keep Hughes. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. And overall, it's been a great season for Tulane. This is an 11-2 team, but obviously without a lot of their key players. That's why this team is such a heavy underdog. I mean, Virginia Tech has 5 less wins than Tulane, but they're still a 10.5 point favorite, mainly because Tulane is shorthanded in this matchup. They don't really have their strongest team. But with that, let's get the prediction here for Virginia Tech and Tulane coming up here in the Military Bowl. Definitely an interesting match for both sides. A lot going into it with that. I do want to go Virginia Tech 28-17. I think Hokies find a way to win this game. I think for Virginia Tech, what sold me is the ceiling of this team. The level that we have seen this team play at, especially in the second half of the season. As for Tulane, this team hasn't been quite as dominant in the second half, and they're also coming off of obviously a tough loss to SMU in the American Athletic Championship game, and obviously being shorthanded doesn't help anything either. I feel like the spread kind of is a bit misleading. This can still be a really close game. I feel like Tulane is a team at this point that's being kind of overlooked based on the spread being 10.5 points towards Virginia Tech, but I still think Virginia Tech wins by maybe a touchdown or 2. I think they can pull away in the fourth quarter and find a way, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was a pretty low-scoring game and the defenses kind of take over. But I'm taking VTech 55%, taking the over for this game, which is 44.5, so a pretty low line there, so I am taking the over barely. I've got 45 points on the total, so the over-under is pretty much a coin toss for this one. Good luck predicting it. But I'm taking VTech to cover the spread and for them to win this matchup in the end. But with that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, your score predictions, all of that. I appreciate you guys all watching as always. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.